baddies, I'm Terra Newell. I am so excited for today's episode. I have on a good friend that I just met this summer. She is in the true crime space, in the paranormal space. She has the Haunted Detective podcast. Her name is Kelsey Childs, and I'm so excited that I got to connect with her because we got to talk about generational trauma. We got to do a panel this year at True Crime and Paranormal Festival. And I also got to do it with my other friend, Madison McGee from Ice Cold Case. So it was a lot of fun. And then before we get into this episode, I have a couple of things coming up. First, I have a workshop coming up, a podcasting workshop where you can either build your own podcast, it's 8 weeks, or you can revamp your own podcast that you have now, or you could just learn ethical tendencies in order to create a more ethically inclined podcasting space. Or if you have a YouTube, it's also helpful for that. I talk about in the last week how to monetize it. I have people coming on like Jessica for Justice, Justin from Generation Y, Murderish, Jamie Rice from Murderish. I have Murder Diaries, and just so many other great players involved. So check that out. That starts October 1st. And then I have courses that you could take anytime on trauma, and you can always book a one-on-one call with me. If you are like, I have a story, I don't know what to do, I can help you with that. Or if you have trauma and you're like, I don't know where to start, I do coaching, I do somatic experiencing, but I also just want to make sure that you're getting the help that you need. And if you want to start a podcast, love to help you. Join the course, starts October 1st. And we're doing a series of 8 weeks that are live as well. So let's get into this episode with Kelsey Childs. Hi, Kelsey. Thank you so much for joining me today. For those that don't know you, tell me a little bit about yourself.
My name is Kelsey Childs, but some people may or may not know me as the paranormal Sherlock Holmes. I have a podcast called Haunted Detective, which is a true crime paranormal show where we kind of deep dive and investigate into creepy, spooky things that we've been told make our listeners sleep with the lights on at night. So,
Oh, joy. Oh,
yeah,
joy.
so fun.
So check out her podcast if you want to sleep with the lights on.
We all love it.
Yes. Now, Kelsey, how did we meet? We met through Ellen, right?
Yeah, Ellen was live streaming and she added you in to promote your panel. I'm gonna take the stairs?
I'll take the stairs.
I'll take the stairs. And we just started chatting in the comments. I followed you, you followed me, and then we ended up on a live stream together somehow, and it was more like a FaceTime than a live stream. And then we ended up on a panel together. So yay.
Yes. No, Ellen told me about you actually too. And she told me that you had
I'm crazy.
No, that you
Oh.
were on No, and we don't like to use those words here,
Oh.
because no shame, no game, and no women should be called crazy. You know what I mean?
That weird girl Kelsey. Yeah, stay away from her.
Yeah, that weird girl Kelsey. She was telling me about that weird girl Kelsey, but no, she wasn't. And she was telling me how you were on Robbie and Ellen, and how I really needed to connect with you, and that you were going to be in Colorado and coming to True Crime and Paranormal Festival.
That's me. I'm that person. Yeah.
I love it. You're being so awkward right now, too.
Listen, that's my specialty, is making situations that shouldn't be awkward uncomfortable.
Yeah, well, because we do so many lives together, and then now is when you're starting to be quiet and you're like, I'm Kelsey. Hi.
Can I just be totally honest with you? So I'm supposed to be taking a certain migraine med called Nurtec, and my insurance keeps denying it. But triptans, I can't really take them because they make me feel varying degrees of hungover and just out of it. And so now I have to try 2 other triptans before they consider approving it. So I had to take Raltriptan or something yesterday. And oh my God, I do not feel good. Good, fine. You wait, Tara, in this, no pain, no gain. We power through it. I went to the gym. We're good.
God bless. God
That's
bless.
unhealthy.
Well, hey, I like that you're putting your muscles into action and you're moving them, and you do a lot of different triathlons.
I do ultra marathoning.
Okay, that's what it's called.
So it's like 50K plus. We run ridiculous miles, and then just make memes out of ourselves pretty much.
Is this like the Wim Hof what Wim Hof did?
The what now?
Wim Hof, he did all these like mega triathlon things in like the desert and then like went to the cold.
That might be an agoji.
Okay.
That's a different thing that I don't really know the definition for.
Okay. But like you're say it again because I'm already blanking on the word. I had COVID recently.
Oh my God, we're a great pair today, aren't we?
We are. We're so
You have
great.
water? Are you gonna drink water with me?
My water's over there. I love it. Are you doing the gallon challenge or not so much?
No.
Is
I
that like
just I'm so disorganized. I keep bottles with me and then I forget about them around the house and then I waste so much water. So I'm like, I'm just gonna keep a gallon with me because you can't lose a gallon and a half of water.
love that. Yeah, so you have your podcast, you do the mega triathlons, you said?
Ultra marathons.
Ultra marathons. Okay, so tell me what ultra marathons are really about.
Um, it's endurance, it's crazy distances. It's really just so for me, I feel just complete and whole when I'm running. I don't know if it's the endorphins or it's just something I love doing. I know that you love doing yoga. Someone else might love writing, drawing, hiking, whatever it might be. For me, that's writing and running. But with running, I feel just completely in my body and like a normal human being.
Yes, yes. And when I came out to Colorado for the True Crime and Paranormal Festival, I love the fact that you were every day before the festival getting in a workout and also moving around your body and moving around like any trauma that was stored. And I felt like that was a great way to prepare for the festival.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the gym every week, 4 days a week. And I was injured. I had an IT band injury, which is the tendon ligament that runs along the outside of your knee. And so I just had gotten back into running. And so yeah, I was really trying to get out there and build my miles back up and now this week is gonna I'm trying to hit 25 miles a week and I'm gonna cap it out at like 40 miles a week because when you're training for distance running, you're not training your runs per day, you're training the overall mileage in that week.
I love that. And then those endorphins really helped. So let's talk about the panel afterwards that we did together and talk about all the good things about generational trauma, even.
Oh, the good things.
All the good things.
As Ellen says, I'm fine. I mean, generational trauma is such an interesting thing in how it relates to epigenetics. I mean, my family, for instance, going through the Holocaust generations back, that flipped a switch in my genes and like literally altered my neural pathways in my brain, my genealogy, all of that stuff, and created the person who I am today before all the trauma, like the paper outline of Kelsey. And then, you know, my grandmother being murdered and being raised directly and indirectly with that trauma also shaped a lot of things. So for me, my a large portion of my life has been unlearning habits and unlearning bad tendencies, I guess, and negative belief systems. And you know, I was born with anxiety. My anxiety was so bad that it was misdiagnosed as ADHD with a capital H for hyper. But looking back on it now with my knowledge and, you know, going to school for social work and trying to get into law enforcement, I'm really, that was anxiety. That feeling that was causing me to act out was anxiety. And that's so crazy because how can a little kid, like, that's been through relatively nothing in their life, have anxiety that bad?
Yeah, no. And I love the fact that we brought up working out earlier because I think it also contributes to you healing and working through that generational trauma yourself. And I think that the panel was really great because not everybody knows about all the effects of generational trauma, the epigenetics and everything. And I think that as your grandpa was a Holocaust survivor, right?
No. So my family came over on Ellis Island. We were Tchaikovsky, and
Okay.
now we're Childs. Yeah, I don't know. I think it was my great great grandparents.
Okay.
I have to ask. I can text my parents right now and ask who are Holocaust survivors specifically. And they'll have an answer for you.
Well, even having that genealogy in your body, I noticed that a lot of my friends who their relatives were Holocaust survivors, that anxiety and also like I noticed a lot of like people appeasing with them too.
What do you mean by appeasing?
Like always being so helpful, like always worrying about others, always kind of just like being super heightened aware of other people's emotions and just really kind of like balancing those out to make sure those people are okay.
I know this shouldn't be controversial, but it might. The Jewish community, we're a very empathetic group. I mean, our traditions, our holidays, and just who we are as people. And I think the collective trauma we've all been through over and because it's not just the Holocaust, it's like every century there's something. We're being ethnically cleansed, we're being, removed from an area, we're in a constant state of diaspora. So the Jewish people, like, we know survival and we know kindness and we what uh what a therapist I used to have called loving kindness, which it's so different. It's a very Buddhist term, but I really do feel like a lot of Jewish people who take their mental health and their interpersonal relationships seriously are really good at those kinds of things because of the constant boom, 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 boom our ancestors have always had to face.
Yeah, no, I think that that's a really interesting thing, and it really brings on a not defect, but a genetic cycle of appeasing and learning how to survive in those instances.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people will say, "These are always on top. They're always like powerful." And it's like, no, we have this we need to succeed. We need to protect ourselves. And yeah, it's people pleasing. It's wanting to put yourself in a position of protection without really understanding why. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear about Jewish stuff right now, and I get it, and I empathize with that. But it's a really, really important example when it comes to generational trauma and epigenetics.
Yeah, no, and I believe it was Gabriel Matte. He said something about the generational trauma and the generational cycle of Holocaust survivors, that is one of the main kind of steady cycles in a sense. So that's why it was also important to bring it up because it also related to your generational trauma and cycle as well. And that's something that should be talked about to be moved through.
My mother's paternal grandmother left her brother and his family, and he stayed in Poland long after she left, and she was gone before the Holocaust, which I think is interesting.
Okay.
Something that I find really interesting with like the I guess the Jewish community is that because we originate from the 12 tribes. And so like there's always conversation like, "Ooh, which tribe are you from?" And a lot of people they track these tribes for generations and it's passed down paternally like we're this tribe, but your mother was this tribe. And I find that so interesting because it's just such a great example of finding community through adversity. And I think that that's something we don't do very well nowadays. as like a whole, as a society, is through adversity, we kick and we scream and we push people away, and we kind of become our pain in a lot of ways. We don't find community. We don't find resources and help. We push and push and push and scream and shout, and we do it all for other people and not for ourselves. And I was talking to some friends that I have that are Latina and Latino, and they were saying marginalized people finding community with each other is so important. And I'm like, we haven't done that yet. Like, marginalized communities haven't done that yet. But also, just in general, like, you've created a community, Tara, when it comes to survivors. And that's just such a rare thing. And I want to see that more nowadays, is advocating for yourself and just like reaching out. I don't know. That's so off topic, but it just made me think of that.
I love that. I love that. Well, and then I feel like something else we talked about in the panel is how to heal. And I know that CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, was really great for you. Can you talk a little bit about that?
It's cognitive processing therapy, which I guess is it's like the tree of CBT, and like one branch is DBT, the other branch is CPT, and then you have EMDR. It's one whole family tree of therapy. But yeah, I never resonated well with EMDR. I never did well with DBT or even CBT, because it's like, I know these skills. I know what I need to do. I know what I'm supposed to do, but it's a matter of calming my mind enough and managing my trauma in a consistent way that I am able to sit down and say, okay, I'm starting to shake right now. What do I need to do? A hot bath, a hot shower? Because what so many people don't understand, and what we're starting to find out about trauma, we become immobile in so many ways when we're in the thick of it. And so to say, like, oh, just meditate, oh, just box breathe. Have you tried doing the wave in your mind? Just let it wash over you. You're like, I can't, like, there's a broken record in my brain. I don't know how I'm supposed to do that right now. And to the people listening who have had that issue, and like, you try to do EMDR and you get to the point where you're supposed to picture where you are and your past, and you can't do that, that's normal. That's why so many veterans start with CPT, because it's the beginning stages of a bigger process. And for me, I've just felt like I've been able to reclaim my power and my life. And I said to my therapist today, I feel like I'm finally ready to like take my power back and move on from the past. And I've been watching this Canadian drama. Canadian dramas are the best, by the way, Tara. They are chef's kiss, amazing, called Being Erica. And I told this to my therapist today. I watched it a long time ago when I was not ready to hear the message, but I recommend everyone who's suffering with trauma and being stuck in this cycle and this past, go watch it. But it's about a girl, Erica Strange, and she's very unfortunate in her life. And there's a lot of bad luck, and it opens up the television show. And there are going to be a few spoilers, nothing crazy, but it opens up the show with her basically saying, yeah, and you know, my life is so bad, it's terrible, and it's because of the choices I made. And I'm so unlucky because I always make the wrong choice and the wrong decision. And I know for anyone suffering with PTSD or CPTSD out there, you've had moments like that where you're like, God, if I could just have made a different decision or done something else, or, you know, viewed this a different way, then my life would be so different. And the TV show basically starts where she has an allergic reaction. She ends up in the ER. And this mysterious therapist comes and he's like, you need therapy. And he hands her a card. She's like, I didn't try to kill myself. It was an allergic reaction. He's like, no. I know. And so she goes and finds his office, and he has her sit down and write a list of all of her regrets. Because he asked her, he was like, what's holding you back? And she said, well, the decisions I've made, I wish I could change them. And so throughout the series, he sends her back to change these decisions. But you start to realize, and skip ahead like 10 seconds of this episode, or 30 seconds if you don't want spoilers, but she begins to realize that no matter what she changes, her present stays the same, because you can go back and change anything and everything and, decide, oh, I'm not going to kiss this boy, or, oh, I'm not going to drink too much at my 11th grade dance and embarrass myself and throw up on the dance floor. And then she goes back and everything's the same. There are just new memories implanted in people's heads. And so nothing that she did changed where she was. And I don't know. I think that's so powerful. And I've like come to that conclusion in therapy and like started to remove the shame around things that have happened to me. And to the point where I was like, okay, I'm ready to watch this again and understand it.
I love that so much. And I definitely have to check it out. And it's like a time travel, so she's going back in time to fix this.
Yeah.
Okay, that is so cool. And then it kind of gives you like an outside perspective of like, wow, everything in my life I couldn't change anyway. So it was just gonna happen.
It's not as much of a like, oh, you're stuck in this fate. It's
Yeah.
you have to change your mindset, not what happened to you. What happened to you is not your fault. People aren't judging you. There's not like, the first episode, she goes back to 11th grade and changes getting blacked out drunk. And the moral there was that people are not thinking about that 10 years later. You're thinking about it. And I understand like being stuck in the past but like the thing with trauma is the hyperfixation on the little things. And that is the avoiding. And in the TV show, she writes down one main regret and it's her brother dying. And Tara, you and I both know that with PTSD, it's one event keeping you stuck in the past. With CPTSD, it's more than one event keeping you stuck in the past. But all of those other little things that get thrown in there are ancillary. And they matter. They're not, like, I'm not saying they're insignificant and they don't matter, but they're all different branches of that same trauma. And for her, it was her brother dying. And that's what's keeping her stuck in the past. And I have a feeling where the show's going to go is your brother dying was not your fault. There's nothing you could have done. And that's like the big healing step. And it's the same, like, my past is not my fault. I can tell people, I can live it and look back on it and understand that that was part of my journey. And I wouldn't be where I am today without it.
Yeah, I love that so much. And then now, where has your journey brought you with covering people's stories as well?
Ooh, well, part of that healing journey for me and my family was my grandmother's cold case of like decades from the 70s getting solved in 2022. And I was already doing true crime at that point, and I was doing it ethically with a question mark at the end. It wasn't perfect. It was, I was very much focused on the psychology behind serial killers and the psychology behind a case. But that there was a piece that when that happened, I took pause and I was like, okay, what do I do different? Because suddenly I feel dirty. I feel really, really dirty covering cases. And it was actually Pamela, who has worked in the criminal justice system on a cold case team, piecing together these cases, right? And, being friends with her and asking questions has really helped. And so I'm kind of, and I said this in one of your live streams, it's not your story to tell, and understanding that. So word choice, details, things like that, and I remember there was a panel at the festival where she was like, her head got bludgeoned to death. Change that for he hit her over the head and she passed away. So, switching out different words. And I've realized that, changing, and trigger warning, rape and sexual assault and saying SA, even on my podcast, saying SA. There's a delicate way to do things that I don't know. It's so hard to explain because it's something you observe. Like you observe podcasts like me and Pamela or Tara or Strictly Stalking, and you see what they do and you just listen and you just sit back and observe and listen to feedback.
Yes, yes. Okay, so one of the questions I have, because whenever I go and I share my story and I talk about kind of ethics of true crimes, maybe it might make that creator feel a little crummy at times. And I try to tell that creator, like, don't feel crummy, just try to like do better, try to be empathetic. When you switched over from that kind of transition to like, oh crap, I have like a true crime story of my own, even like, how, what do you recommend for them even to do?
Honestly, just observe. It's
Okay.
the best thing that you can do, and ask questions. Like, people like me and Tara, if you DM us and you ask us something, even Pamela, like, we're always going to answer, and we're always going to, give your, oh my God, we're always going to give you our feedback. But, it's really, and this is something I've learned just in social situations too, be a silent observer for a little bit. It's okay to cover the bare bones of the case. It's also okay, which was like before my grandmother was the first part of my transition, was just covering the past. I didn't talk about the crimes. I didn't talk about the trial. It was strictly educational about psychology. How did we get from A to the pound symbol so quickly with these people who are murderous? And, it's teaching people about McDonald's triangle and McDonald's triad. Oh my God, geometry. Um, but yeah, I really just, you have to understand, for one, it's not your, if I were to give you guys a list, one, it's not your job to speculate or throw out accusations or make assumptions. If you're going to say anything, there has to be ample evidence. And even then, make sure people know it's alleged. I think, I believe. And even then, it's like suspicious. In a case we're going to talk about, Praveen Varghese, like, this guy was convicted of murder, so we can say allegedly this guy did it, not Praveen, the person who killed him. So there's like a time and place for it. But if you're going to you know, then take a story and twist it and point blame at people, or say, I think this victim was involved. Even the Chris Watts case, saying his mistress was involved, that's sketchy. That's taking away from the story of the victims and creating this whole new narrative. And now everyone's talking about the mistress and no one's talking about the victims.
Yeah.
Another, yeah. Another one is education over entertainment. So these stories are not here for you to have fun listening to. If you are going to tell true crime stories, they have to be educational and documentary words. Um so
I
that means,
I
oh,
think
sorry.
no worries. I just think more fact based, right?
Yes.
Yes.
More fact-based, more, don't tell these stories. It, like, sit down and ask yourself, why am I covering true crime? Am I covering true crime because I want followers and fame and I want to be like this YouTuber? Or am I covering true crime because this is something I'm genuinely fascinated about, and I want to tell the story and learn things while I'm teaching other people things? Because you have to, your intentions are so important at how you put the story across. Big one.
Yes, no, and then I love that you were at that panel and were paying attention to that panel, because that panel actually got created because of my workshop that I have for podcasting, trying to create, well, like it gives you the step by step how to create a podcast, and also talks about the ethics and how to be more ethically inclined with like the words that you use and stuff. And Haley Gray was great at like talking with us about that. So I just love that you took even, notes from that panel.
Yeah, I didn't hear very much of it because I was running around doing something. I think I was trying to find you
Oh,
or
okay.
something.
Or the bear.
It was the bear or working on the presentation, but I sat in for like as long as I could, and I remember her talking about verbiage, and that's really important. And I know people on the internet, they get weird when you censor words like murder, or you don't say rape or sexual assault. That doesn't matter. Let them be offended. Like, even if you, like, something I've started saying is their life was taken. and not they were brutally murdered. Like, their life was taken. They were gone too soon. They like, even saying something like they passed away. No, they didn't pass away. Their life was taken away. But there are sensitive ways to say it, and you can also, look up and see if these victims, survivors, family members, whatever it might be, are they on social media? Are they advocating against their story getting told? Is there a missing persons page for their loved one that you could share to your followers? Or are there ways that you can properly help these people? And have you ever thought about reaching out? Like, when I covered Praveen Varghese, I reached out to his mom and I sent her the script, and that's what should be done every single time.
Yes. So tell me about that case.
Oh God. That is, can I curse on your podcast?
Absolutely.
Okay, that is a fucked up case that makes me so fucking angry. And this is a shout out to the woman who left me a review saying that I curse too much. Sometimes it's warranted, especially with this case that gets me so furious. Like, I was telling Tara I want to do like a whole series on it to try and like help get some justice. But basically, I'll give you guys the short of the long, and yeah, it's wild. So this kid was murdered, Praveen Varghese, after going around and going to parties and stuff, and he was found in a really suspicious way. And the cops lied about the way his body was found, the state of his body. They just started, he's a first generation Indian American. I'm not saying indigenous wrong. His family's actually from India. And there was so much misinformation, and the cops, they knew that this white kid killed him, and they tried to paint Praveen as a drug addict and a drug dealer, and they even tried to get like the kid who killed him, Gage, to say it in the interrogation room, like, Praveen was on drugs, right? He was selling you drugs, right? Praveen was a drug addict, right? Like, I'm sorry, that's not an interrogation. That's coercion. Like, what the fuck? So, fast forward to the trial, and like I said, I'm skimming through this because the episode took us like an hour and a half, 2 hours to record, and it's like a 50-minute episode, but it's a really, really long, complicated story. But basically, Gage gets arrested. He's selling drugs in prison. And, this is information we got. And we're going to try and get Praveen's mom on to our show. And I'm going to connect her to Tara. But there's just so much suspicious stuff going on. And, some things that might cause a mistrial. And allegedly in Minecraft. And then the jury deliberates for like 14 hours or something ridiculous like that. Come back. Gage is guilty. Gage killed Praveen. The judge comes back in and says, no, we're actually overturning the verdict because there was a syntax error in the indictment. There was a comma missing. A comma, Tara. A motherfucking comma. And my question always was, so Gage just gets to go free, and the state keeps rejecting and rejecting and rejecting, like, no, we're not going to reopen it, we're not going to do this. And his family's like, he was found guilty.
Okay, so like a question, how old was he and where did this happen?
Let me double check my script. I don't have 2%. I don't want to get any information wrong, and I don't remember stuff off the top of my head. See. Sorry, I don't know what account I have this pitch on. It's not here. Not this pitch, the script. Oh my god. My brain is so fried right now. Okay. Wait, wrong one. Okay. He was a criminal justice student, actually, in Chicago at Southern Illinois University. He vanished from a party in Morton Grove before he was found dead. Please edit out the part where I'm trying to find that information.
That part will only be in the Patreon for the video.
Cool. He was 19.
19. Okay, so he was not necessarily like a kid yet. Or a kid. He's past being a kid. Sorry. COVID brain.
Yes. Yeah. He was.
Okay. And then was he out of high school already in college or?
Yeah. He was in Southern Illinois University in Chicago, studying criminal justice.
Okay, that's right. Yes. So, okay. And then how was he unalived?
There are just the details are so specific in this case. I believe it was blunt force trauma.
Okay.
Yeah, it was blunt force trauma to the head. He had suffered over 20 wounds, ones that could like only be sustained if he was severely beaten, and his cause of death was officially blunt force trauma, but the initial reporting was that he died of hypothermia. Like that's what I mean. There's so many like little details in this case, which is why I'm like I need to pull up the script that I wrote because like I know for a fact everything on there is correct.
Yeah, no, and that's really great when you're connecting with the parents and then you're able to have that information because you can't just like go Google a story and then think all the information on there is correct.
Yeah, not every news article is going to be correct. Just because it seems like a source doesn't mean it actually is.
Yeah, well, that's really great that you spoke about that case. Now, what are you trying to do now with that case? What's the family trying to do now?
That's the thing is that I feel like there's a way we as like a community could help more because you it's just like Ellen Greenberg, who was a woman in I believe Philadelphia who was stabbed 20 times and it was ruled a suicide. And it was because she was on antidepressants, but in reality she was in a very abusive relationship. Um and it's just now, like this happened I think in 2001 or 2011, something like that. Just now they're reopening it again. And there's a very classic video of her parents, and I'll send you the link, Tara, so you can add it in if you want. On the news, and the anchor says, "Did your daughter commit suicide?" And they both in unison go, "No." Like you would be fed up too at that point. So I'm like, at what point does the legal system stop working and start working against what it's supposed to do? And how, as a community with a voice and following, how can we make a difference in that? And how can we federally maybe even put pressure on this, like an amendment to be made in these case appeals? And I understand it can't be every single case because it would you just be like spinning your wheels. But if there's ample evidence, like Ellen Greenberg didn't stab herself 20 times, and Praveen Varghese, his killer, was found guilty by the jury. That's ample evidence without a doubt. That should be enough for these courts should to overturn or to re-examine. And so the thing is, how do we as a community, and I'm asking you because I don't know, because I want to do more, how do we as a community put pressure on the legal system and maybe even fight for a new law, a new jurisdiction, something that can help not just one family, but every family? Because we all know, if anyone's read the book Picking Cotton, because of racial discrimination and other sorts of discrimination, there are so many people wrongly convicted in prison right now. And then on top of that, you have people in prison for smoking weed, and now it's legal. So, like, what can we do about this, like, huge gaping fucking hole in the system?
I think with anything, it's important to talk about it and make noise about it
Yeah.
because you cannot change the system if no one knows about it, you know? And then I think that that's also a question for the audience. Like, what are they willing to do to promote the change?
Yeah. Tara, have you read Picking Cotton?
I have not. I tend to stick to a lot of books about the brain.
That's fair. It was a prerequisite read in college for me, my first year, and it's about a man that was wrongfully convicted of SA. And towards the end of his stay at prison, the woman who he had essayed actually started fighting for him to be released. and saying, this is not the man who did this to me. And it ended up just on coincidence, the man who did it confessed to having done it to her. And there was no evidence that this man should have been put away in prison in the first place, who was wrongfully convicted. He was taken away from his family, his kid. It's just such a sad story. And now him and this woman are really good friends. And I'm like, this should be happening more, where we fight tooth and nail for people to have the right sort of justice.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that comes with us backing them up, people fighting for it themselves, and, really trying to get like that PR and stuff in a sense.
Yeah.
And like I do help survivors and stuff with that. And I even like have a client where Alan, we did a story about her situation and her narcissistic abuse relationship, and now it's charting. So there's a way to like get your story out there. You just have to like keep asking for help, keep asking for people to help you if you don't know the industry. And there's always like these little tricks and tweaks and stuff to like also like go viral on certain platforms. Yeah.
I know. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Well, let's get into the Patreon part. But before we do that, where can we find you for the people that are dropping off right now?
So my podcast is called Haunted Detective. My Instagram is haunted.detective. And my TikTok is haunted_detective. Yeah, I mean, they should be easy to find if you just type in Haunted Detective on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok.
Beautiful.
And Spotify.
Okay.
And iTunes. And all of them. Everywhere. We're everywhere. You can't escape us. Google us. You'll find it.
Beautiful, beautiful. Now let's stay tuned for the Patreon. Thank you for listening to today's episode with Kelsey Childs. Check out the podcasting course. She's going to be interviewed as well. And then also check out her episode of Haunted Detectives, where she talks about the case today, Praveen. Check it out, support the family, and until next time, I'm Terra and Kelsey. Thank you so much for listening.